the next topic I want to talk about was the Grammarly and into Superhuman rebrand. So we talk a lot about rebrands here because a lot of companies have been doing them recently and have been failing. So I want to talk about a company that actually did it well and for the better, I think. So Grammarly acquired email client Superhuman in July of 2025, and has kind of, just had them under wraps. We haven't really heard too much about them, but this week they announced that not only are they going to switch the name from Grammarly to Superhuman as the overarching brand, but they're launching Superhuman Go, which is their new like AI assistant, to kind of connect with Jira and Gmail and Google Calendar and help do all the things that AI can do within, Superhuman. And I thought it was like really interesting because um, it so rarely happens that a company that has been acquired becomes the main company. But I thought it was amazing because Superhuman is such a good name for a company. I've always liked it for like the email client. Grammarly itself is, it's kind of, it's a little too on the nose. It was like, when companies were naming everything with a Y at the end or like the LY at the end. So it made sense for what it does, but it was also very limiting because Grammarly, like for me, it's like, oh, it helps you, check what you're writing and it helps you make sure that it's like properly, it's grammar and like spelling and everything. So it was definitely more in my mind, like it positioned the product too narrow. And now that they've taken over the Superhuman name, it's kind of expanded it for me of like what the company itself can do. So it shows that they've see more long-term value in Superhuman's brand equity, and positioning than their own, which is amazing because Grammarly has been a household name for a really long time now. And the fact that they were, willing to give that up for like the better name shows that they care more about like the product and like what they're building the company, as like a long-term thing than just, keeping Grammarly because they were the parent company. Um, Another thing here is that they're launching, like I said, they're launching Superhuman Go, in order to become more of a productivity tool. So that's showing that now all like the companies are going to fit in the overarching umbrella of like productivity to compete more against like Notion and companies like that help you stay on top of your work and do all that. So the only worry here is that now productivity software is a bigger market and there are more entrenched players that they're going to have to compete against. Productivity software has been projected to hit $102 billion in 2026, which is kind of
Wow.
wild. You've got 71% of workers saying that they use over three productivity tools daily, showing that there's a lot of fragmentation in what people use. So there's a lot of space for them to kind of take over. Um, and AI powered productivity tools saw 156% year over year growth, from 2023 to 2024. And something that I found interesting was that Grammarly had over 30 million daily active users, pre the rebrand in 2024. So that's kind of wild to think that like they had that many people using them on a daily basis. And I think that that's going to be a lot more now that, Superhuman has kind of taken over, or the name has taken over, but then also in the direction that they're headed. They got quite a bit of buzz for this announcement. So I'm sure that picked up a lot of users, or at least people that were interested in signing up to sign up this week purely because of the rebrand. So that's another thing to mention here, that because it did so well and it made so much sense, the rollout, the way that, the CEO and like the CEO of Grammarly, the CEO of Superhuman all came out to talk about it on social media, on, Twitter, shows that they put a lot of thought behind it, that everybody was involved. So the rollout itself went really well, I think. And they ended up getting a lot more press hits because they were able to talk about it in such a good way and explain why the rebrand made sense. And the last thing I'll mention is they also put out a little video about their new logo that shows like what it all means or like what it stands for. I think it's called Hero. They're calling the little icon Hero. And then it just kind of explained that it's the little like cursor for you to like, touch on, and it's a
I
little
love
like
that.
it has a head for you to like think. So that was like really cool that they also put that much thought into the design of the new logo, and then put out the explainer video to get a little bit more traction behind that as well.
And that's something I wanted to kind of to know about them before this acquisition happened is did they kind of take over Superhuman for the name, or was it really for the tech itself, right? Because like Superhuman, the way it started out was as an email client, right?
Mhm.
It was pretty much like what Gemini is trying to do today for you in email,
Mhm.
right? Like they were really ahead of their time and it was great. And like it totally makes sense for them to make that shift. And I wondered like how right now you're basically going to have to rebuild your brand from scratch or really rely on Superhuman's brand equity to help propel you forward, which I would, in actually differing opinion, I don't think it has that much right now to kind of go off of. Even like when the with the Superhuman Go, I felt like that naming scheme was a little confusing as well. Kind of felt like a Superhuman Plus, right? I feel like the
Mhm.
AI assistant could have had a different name to kind of brand it, right? But like it totally does a great job of kind of setting the future that they want to go forward for, right? Because as you
Mhm.
said perfectly, Grammarly is just as a grammar checker, it's only going to have so much runway, right?
Mhm.
So this is one of the rebrands that I'm really going to keep an eye on to see how successful it is because I felt like taking on the name of the product was a very bold move, knowing that
Mhm.
the product itself was more of a like in the know tech people kind of versus like Superhuman feels like more of a we're trying to go for alphabet, right? Very
Mhm.
much like a
Mhm.
big strategic move without
Yeah.
really
That's an
having the
interesting thought. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess I'm very enmeshed in the tech world, so, like, human, like, everybody knows it, everybody's I actually, I'll admit, when Grammarly acquired Superhuman, I was like, "Really? Oh, that's interesting, like, why would they do
exactly.
that?" You know? Like, but this is probably why, like, Grammarly must realize that their target consumer is within the tech world, and then they have, their other, like, customers, who I don't think mind the Grammarly loss of name or whatever, um, but that they wanna entrench themselves a little bit more in the whole, like, tech ecosystem. So by taking on Superhuman's, like, brand equity, it's really doing that, I think at least from, like, the tech lens. But I agree that, like, outside of that, people might be confused. I agree that Superhuman Go is not, like, the best, thing. It was like, whatever. But, I feel like that was in addition to, like, what the actual news was, which was, like, the rebrand itself and the, shifting everything over to being a productivity suite as opposed to just being, like, Grammarly, the grammar check company, you know?
Exactly. It's
Um
like two announcements in one, right? Like
Mhm,
we're moving towards an AI future. We're we're trading in our brand equity for another, right? Like obviously they paid a lot of money for Superhuman. It's
mhm.
just the issue is that Grammarly itself was so tied into what the product delivers, right?
Yeah.
Grammarly, grammar check,
Mhm,
its
mhm.
association that Superhuman never really lined up with being, you know, email,
Mhm.
right? And now you're kind of trade that. There's going to be that risk where people be like, okay, well, I thought I had like this this superhuman product mean I have a grammar checker still, right? Does it mean that what is the name of the email client now? It's because it was it's like
I
very
see, because 'cause
very
they've taken the
synonymous.
name for the company as opposed to leaving it for, like, the email client. Yeah, I think
Exactly.
that
Like
that's,
this is the
fair call
Grammarly
outs.
product of
Yeah.
Superhuman, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
there's
yeah.
a whole new name for the email
Mhm.
client that was not previously
Mhm,
Superhuman,
mhm.
right? That's where the confusion I think that you had initially is like, oh, I didn't expect them to kind of take that on, right? Like
Yeah, but I mean, now I think in hindsight, it's more of a Grammarly reached the wall of like, okay, people know of us as a grammar check company. Now with AI, ChatGPT, even a call out here to Nathan's company Lex that like helps you write within like a Word doc, and then Gemini obviously within Google. It I guess saw the tea leaves and knew that like people weren't going to need a separate product to do that anymore. So they got to start thinking like, what is it that we can viably do going forward? And so they're like, well, if we become a productivity software to compete against Asana, to compete against Notion, then like we need to have an email client that like can help us. Though Asana and Notion don't have email clients, so that's like something different that they're offering. So it is interesting that they're going about it in that way, as opposed to just going out of existence because people realize that they don't really need a fancy grammar check anymore that they want to pay for. um,
Absolutely.